Steph Curry trade bombshell, Bradley Beal bidding war, and Boston's next big move. Celtics fans, buckle up, because this might be the wildest 24 hours of the entire offseason. Stephen Curry's name is suddenly attached to Boston. The Celtics are in a straight-up bidding war with the Miami Heat for a $342 million veteran. Brad Stevens is reportedly lining up another future Hall of Famer to run next to Jason Tatum. And down in the front court, Neemias Queta just broke his silence on the newest Celtic big man. There is a lot to get through today, so if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because Celtics Daily Hub covers this roster every single day. Let's get into it. Heat and Celtics in a bidding war for Bradley Beal. All right, moving from fantasy to something a lot more grounded in reality, Boston is reportedly locked in an actual bidding war right now, and it's with a familiar Eastern Conference rival, the Miami Heat. The target here is three-time All-Star and 14-year veteran Bradley Beal. Reports indicate the Celtics are preparing for life after Jaylen Brown, and adding an experienced veteran of Beal's caliber could be a real way to preserve their championship window, while on the other side, the Heat continue searching for more shooting to put around their new superstar, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Let's zoom out on Miami's summer for a second, because it's been a roller coaster. The Heat were actually one of 5 finalists trying to land LeBron James this offseason, which would have been an absolutely seismic move. That fell through when James chose to sign with the Philadelphia 76ers instead. So Miami pivoted hard, and the return they got was still massive, a blockbuster trade for former Bucks superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now that they have their new franchise centerpiece, the front office's entire focus has shifted toward finding shooters who can space the floor around him. Because as dominant as Giannis is inside, he's never been the guy you want spacing the perimeter himself. Now, Miami's priority list this summer has actually been Klay Thompson first. Multiple reports have Miami viewing Klay as their #1 shooting target, but there's a complication. He's still got a year left on his Dallas contract, so the Heat are exploring trade routes and even potential buyout scenarios there. That's a process that could drag out for weeks. While that plays out, Miami's turned its attention to Beal as a fallback option, and the interest is reportedly mutual. Beal wants a real shot at contending, and Miami, fresh off landing Giannis, fits that mold. But Boston has entered the chat too, and here's why this makes so much sense for the Celtics specifically. Both teams could realistically land Beal on a veteran minimum contract, which makes him an incredibly low-risk, potentially high-reward flyer for whoever wins this race. Think about what Beal would actually bring to Boston. A proven bucket-getter who can create his own shot, someone who's played in playoff pressure before, and a guy who, even at this stage of his career, still commands defensive attention on the perimeter. With Jaylen Brown gone, Boston's wing scoring took a hit, and Paul George's injury history means the Celtics can't count on him for 82 games. A guy like Beal, even in a reduced role off the bench, gives Joe Mazzulla another shot creator when the offense stalls out in the fourth quarter. The kicker is the price tag. We're talking about a player who's earned $342 million across his career, signing for the veteran minimum. That's the kind of value swing that could genuinely tip a playoff series. So keep an eye on this one, because unlike the Curry situation, this is an actual, tangible battle for a specific player's services, and Boston is right in the mix. Celtics predicted to sign DeMar DeRozan. Story number 3, and we're staying on this same theme of Boston hunting for scoring punch to plug the Jaylen Brown-sized hole in the roster. This time, the name being floated is DeMar DeRozan. DeRozan is a 17-year NBA veteran, a 6-time All-Star, and someone who's put together what most people consider a Hall of Fame resume, headlined by his incredible run with the Toronto Raptors. This summer, he became a free agent after Sacramento moved on from him, releasing him and working out a partial guarantee agreement so he could find a real contender to compete with. And DeRozan has earned roughly $305 million in NBA contracts across his career, which tells you everything about the level of production and respect he's commanded across nearly 2 decades in this league. Analysts believe the Celtics make a lot of sense as his next stop. And here's the basketball logic behind it. Boston has the spacing around him to cover for the fact that DeRozan isn't a knockdown three-point shooter, and the roster genuinely needs another table setter who isn't just Jason Tatum, Peyton Pritchard, or Derek White running the offense every single possession. If Paul George can stay healthy, DeRozan would likely slide into more of a sixth-man role, coming off the bench to run second units and close out quarters when the starters need a breather. But given George's injury track record, there's a real chance DeRozan ends up playing heavier minutes than expected. Either way, adding a proven bucket getter of his caliber for what would likely be a bargain, short-term deal given his age and market, gives Boston another dangerous shot creator heading into a season where they're expected to be right there among the top contenders in the East. This is the kind of low-cost, high IQ signing that championship teams make in August, and it's one Celtics fans should genuinely be excited about. It's also worth pointing out the timing here. Multiple contenders around the league are expected to circle DeRozan now that he's a free agent, so this isn't a situation where Boston can just wait around. If Brad Stevens wants to get this deal done, expect him to move fast before another Eastern Conference rival, or worse, a Western Conference team looking to spoil Boston's plans, swoops in first. A player of DeRozan's pedigree rarely stays unsigned for long once real interest starts to build. The big one, Stephen Curry trade rumors. Okay, let's start with the story that broke the internet this week. Stephen Curry, Boston Celtics. Those two things are now being said in the same sentence, and Celtics Nation is losing its mind over it. Here's how this started. After Boston shocked the league by trading away Jaylen Brown this offseason in exchange for Paul George and a haul of draft capital, a lot of people were left scratching their heads about what direction this front office is actually going in. Was this a rebuild? A retool? A total reset around Jason Tatum? Nobody was totally sure. And then, out of nowhere, Sports Illustrated's John Corrales dropped a column that lit the fuse. According to Corrales, Celtics president Brad Stevens may have already reached out about a potential trade for Stephen Curry. That's right. The insider claim was that Boston's front office had already made contact with Golden State about the 4-time champion. Corrales went as far as suggesting Boston has a realistic path to structuring a deal that could work for both sides financially. Naturally, the second that hit the internet, it spread like wildfire. Celtics Twitter, or X, whatever we're calling it these days, exploded. Warriors fans panicked, and suddenly, everyone was building hypothetical trade packages sending Paul George, Sam Hauser, and a pile of first-round picks out to the Bay Area for the greatest shooter who has ever lived. Let's talk about why this rumor caught fire in the first place. Boston shipping out Jaylen Brown for Paul George was already one of the most stunning moves of the entire offseason. Nobody saw it coming, and it immediately raised questions about whether Tatum was going to have enough firepower around him to keep Boston in true championship contention. So when a name like Curry, a 4-time champion, a 2-time MVP, arguably the greatest shooter the sport has ever produced, gets floated as a potential replacement piece, of course it's going to dominate the news cycle. It's the kind of move that would instantly reshape the entire Eastern Conference hierarchy. Now, before you get too excited, or too terrified, depending on which fan base you're in, let's pump the brakes for a second, because this is where it gets messy. Corrales himself came out and clarified that his original piece was an opinion column, not a report. He was very direct about it, saying flat out that he did not report the Celtics made an offer to the Warriors. What he actually wrote was that if Golden State ever became open to moving Curry, Brad Stevens would be the guy making that call. Big difference between "this happened" and "this could theoretically happen someday." But once the internet gets a hold of a headline like that, nuance goes out the window. And the pushback from the Warriors side has been swift and loud. NBA insider Brett Siegel stated flatly that Curry is not going to be traded by Golden State and that he isn't prepared to ask his way out of the Bay Area. Another well-connected Warriors reporter, Dalton Johnson, tweeted that the rumor simply hasn't happened and that Curry will not be traded, before going right back to celebrating his wedding anniversary. That's how confident these people are that this is dead on arrival. Then you've got Danny Emmerman of the San Francisco Standard, who's about as plugged in as it gets with the Warriors organization. He said the information available to him, both what Curry has said publicly and what people around him have said privately, is that Steph wants to finish his career as a Warrior. Full stop. But here's the one nugget that keeps this story alive for Celtics fans dreaming big. Emmerman also noted that Curry, who's on an expiring contract north of $60 million, would hypothetically be open to taking a pay cut, but only if it meant pairing with a genuine difference maker who could help Golden State compete right now. So where does that leave us? Realistically, nowhere close to an actual trade. Golden State has bigger issues to sort out this summer, with Jimmy Butler still working his way back from a torn ACL and their roster finished way outside the play-in picture. Curry's status isn't the problem they're trying to solve today, but you can bet that if the Warriors ever do hit a wall with this current core, Brad Stevens will be the very first phone call Golden State's front office gets. For now, this is a storyline to watch, not a trade to bank on, but my goodness, imagine Steph Curry next to Jason Tatum in that green and white. We had to talk about it. Queta breaks silence on Mitchell Robinson. And finally, let's head to the front court, because Neemias Queta is speaking out for the first time about Boston's newest big man addition, Mitchell Robinson. Quick refresher. Last season, Queta stepped into the starting center role after both Al Horford and Luke Kornet departed in free agency. And honestly, he surprised a lot of people early on. But once the postseason hit, his inexperience showed, and Boston struggled in stretches because of it. So this offseason, Brad Stevens went out and added size and experience by signing Mitchell Robinson in free agency. Speaking with the Portuguese outlet Abola, Queta gave his honest reaction to sharing the front court with Robinson. He talked about how much he respects not having to battle Robinson for rebounding position anymore, describing him as an incredibly strong, agile player who can go up and win nearly every offensive rebound he goes after. Queta emphasized that because the two of them play such a similar brand of physical, high-motor basketball, their games should complement each other extremely well, and that Boston now has arguably one of the most dominant offensive rebounding frontcourts in the entire Eastern Conference. It's a genuinely encouraging sign when a young player is that mature about a new addition who's essentially competing for his own minutes. Instead of feeling threatened, Queta is talking about how much easier his job gets with Robinson on the floor beside him, especially on the glass, where offensive rebounding battles can wear a big man down over the course of an 82-game season. But there's a real conversation happening around how Boston manages Robinson's health. On the Celtics Chronicle podcast, Knicks Film School's Jonathan Macri broke down exactly how the Knicks handled Robinson's minutes when he was in New York, explaining that there was never an official cap, but in practice, he was treated like a sub-20-minute-a-game player across most of the season. Macri's real point was this: if Boston plans on being smart and protective with Robinson, don't expect him logging heavy minutes on both nights of a back-to-back, and don't expect an 82-game workload. If anything, seeing the Celtics push him beyond that would actually be a red flag, not a green light. On top of the on-court fit, Queta also opened up about his own new contract situation. He signed a 4-year, $56 million extension with Boston earlier this summer, and he made it clear that security mattered more to him than maximizing every last dollar. He talked about how much it means to know the organization committed to him for 4 more years, and how that removes the constant uncertainty that comes with jumping from team to team as a free agent. It's a great story of a young big man who fought for a role, earned it, got paid, and now gets to grow into a deeper front court rotation alongside a proven veteran in Robinson and Luka Garza behind him. And from a roster-building standpoint, that's exactly the kind of front court depth Boston was missing last postseason, when injuries and inexperience at the 5 spot got exposed against tougher competition. Queta, Robinson, and Garza battling for minutes all season is a good problem for Joe Mazzulla to have. So that's your Celtics update for today. A wild Steph Curry rumor that's probably more fantasy than reality, an actual bidding war with Miami for Bradley Beal, DeMar DeRozan potentially walking through the door to pair with Jason Tatum, and Neemias Queta welcoming Mitchell Robinson into one of the most physical front courts in the East. Which of these moves are you most excited about? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one of them. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button, subscribe for daily Celtics coverage, and I will see you in the next one. Let's go Celtics!